Greetings, programs and StarPod Log listeners. This is Kevin Packard from the band Checkpoint Charley coming to you live from Nashville, Tennessee, digging deep into the Starlog pile to discuss something that is near and dear to my heart, Superheroes on TV, an article written by Richard Myers in the March 1978 issue about the then current trend of bringing comic heroes to television. Now, subjects like this are rife with opportunities for great conversation among people, more to the point, geeks like myself and my special guest. Grant Baciocco is a respected member of the comedy, music, and puppeteering communities. He's a member of the Podcast Hall of Fame and has been a featured performer for Henson Studios, Mystery Science Theater 3000, Puppet Up Live, and is the creator and performer behind TikTok star Toilet Tea Paper. He joins me from his home in Los Angeles, California. Grant, how are things going?
Fantastic, Kevin. Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Oh my gosh, we have a history, and it's long and seated. I'm so excited to have you here as my guest.
Well, as I said, I'm happy to be here. It's been a while since we chatted, but actually not that long comparatively since we saw each other.
You were doing Mystery Science Theater 3000 live.
Yes.
Here in Nashville.
2018, I think, yeah.
How was that tour?
I loved it. That was the second of the Mystery Science Theater tours that I did, and I love the road. I love going. I mean, I guess I've only done 3 tours technically, but I love seeing different places. I love eating the best food in whatever town that
we had barbecue that day. Martin's here, and no, I'm sorry, we did Jack's in Nashville.
Yeah, and so it was a lot of fun, and I I'm out here and I've done a lot of work fortunate enough to do a lot of work in television and movies and all that kind of stuff, but I am a live performer at heart. I love being in front of a live audience, and that is my absolute favorite thing to do. So those tours were a lot of fun.
Oh gosh, and doing everything from being a puppeteer to being a bonehead at MST3K Live, and then doing, you have deep-seated roots in the wrestling community. You have deep-seated roots in the podcasting community. You are in the Podcast Hall of Fame.
That is correct. Yes, I created a show back in 2004, way back in the early days of podcasting, called The Radio Adventures of Dr. Floyd, and that took off. People enjoyed that, and so it led to me getting into the Podcast Hall of Fame, which was very nice. That's
amazing. Discussion here today, we're talking about specifically 70s era superheroes on TV. Specifically, this is this comes from an article in Starlog from 1978. Were you a Starlog reader back in the day?
You know what? When I was in high school, I got really, really interested in special effects makeup. That's what I wanted to do. That's what I really wanted to do. Was I saw the movie Summer School with Mark Harmon and Chainsaw and
Dave. All of us wanted to be Chainsaw and Dave.
Yes, I definitely wanted to be them. So like that Christmas, my parents got me a huge special effects makeup kit, and I had, I would go to dinner with bullet holes in my head and stuff like that, and I thought it was hilarious. So during that time, I would say probably my sophomore, junior, senior year, whenever that movie came out and onwards, I read Starlog, I read Fangoria, I wanted all that information on what you could do in the world of movies and making effects and creatures and all that stuff. So I came late to it in that I didn't get into it till maybe junior year in high school, but I definitely picked up my fair share of copies.
You wanted to be Rick Baker, and again, I didn't want to be Rick Baker so much as I wanted to be Chainsaw and Dave. I wanted to do that whole thing. I remember going to my local theater supply company and buying liquid latex and doing all the blood effects with that stuff. It was so much fun.
Yeah, and you know what's funny is I don't know exactly where he lives, but Rick Baker lives in the area. So every once in a while when I'm out and about, I'll see him, and I'll just be like, oh my God, there's Rick Baker right there. And like, I've never gone up to him. I've never said anything to him because I don't want to bug him. But and then I also wonder, it's like, I wonder how often he is recognized. His work would be recognized by millions of people, but I'm sure there's people who recognize him, especially around here. But it's always great to see him. I think he's fantastic.
Now, Starlog was kind of like the only outpost for those of us who were really into the sci-fi community back in the 70s and 80s. And this specific issue talks about superheroes on TV, and they reference two kind of points. Now, for me, superheroes on TV always began with Batman, right? That sort of 60s camp. But one of the things that they reference in this article is where the script was sort of flipped, and Marvel actually came on television via Spider-Man and the Incredible Hulk. What are your memories of first of all, did you watch either of these shows when they were on TV? Are you old enough to have watched them on TV, and what were your memories of that?
Well, I definitely watched... I don't remember Spider-Man being on TV. I mean, obviously it was. Spider-Man on the Electric Company, I definitely saw.
Nobody knows who you are!
And I guess, Spider-Man the cartoon I certainly watched a lot. So if that's the... But live action Spider-Man, I don't think I saw other than the Electric Company. But I have a vivid memory. Unfortunately, it's not about the show, but I have a vivid memory of watching The Incredible Hulk, and I would watch The Incredible Hulk regularly. And I loved The Incredible Hulk, and my memory is that my mom kept telling me I had to come to dinner or something. Like, she kept telling me there was something to do, and I wanted to watch The Incredible Hulk. And in my, I don't know how old I was, 5 years old or whatever, in my brain, I was like, oh, if I turn off the TV right now, it will save my space. And then I'll be able to I'm going to wait till a commercial. I'm going to turn off the TV, and then I'll be able to come back and watch the rest of The Incredible Hulk. Of course, that didn't work, but I invented TiVo back when I was 5 years old. If only I had known what I invented. But I loved The Incredible Hulk and watching it on TV, and I loved the Spider-Man animated show. I don't know if Starlog was necessarily referencing that, but and then of course on the Electric Company.
Yeah, they were talking about, for a very short time, I believe it was 2 seasons, they had a live action Spider-Man television show. It began with the 2-hour TV movie, because everything began with the 2-hour TV movie back then. This is 1978, right. So you had, this is just after Star Wars came out, and so you had the 2-hour TV movie of Battlestar Galactica, which launched a series, and then you had a 2-hour TV movie of Buck Rogers in the 25th Century, and that launched an entire series, right? But one of the things that most of these people talk about is just how expensive it was to produce television like that. Because, I mean, if for the average kid watching The Incredible Hulk, you watch him change from Bill Bixby into Lou Ferrigno, and you'd see the same sort of sequence, the metamorphosis that had happened the same way pretty much every time, right? You watch that now and you go, oh, come on, you guys, that's kind of lazy. But back then it was like, oh, he's going to transform. He got his foot caught in the brake on his car, and he's getting all pissed off, and so now he's going to transform. And you waited for that, right?
Yeah.
The interesting thing that they reference in this article is the fact that in the 70s, it kind of flipped the script a little bit, in that, when you had the camp of Batman, and you had the seriousness or the sort of the over-the-top wholesome goodness of Superman in the 50s. In the 70s, you suddenly had these superhero characters who had an identity, who had a past, who had a conscience, and it wasn't really the birth of the anti-hero, but I think that more to the point, it was like the birth of the reluctant hero. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when the first Superman movie was in the late 70s, right? Isn't that when?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I remember seeing that, I remember definitely, which had its own elements of comedy in it as well. But, just being blown away by that, that film. I thought it was fantastic. I think even as a kid, I thought that Christopher Reeve wasn't as muscular as I had pictured Superman, with all the toys and stuff.
Totally.
obviously in way better shape than I'll ever be at any point in my life. But, I loved those films. I thought those were great. And, I was definitely, you mentioned the 60s Batman show. That was on in reruns as a kid, and I watched that all the time. So,
there was a conflict in my house because I believe that you have a younger brother, right?
I do. He's 8 years younger than me. Yeah.
8 years younger than you, and you guys grew up in the Bay Area, right?
San Francisco Bay Area. Yep.
Okay, that's correct. So, for when I was a kid, this is like 1977, 78, or maybe even earlier than that, but probably around 76. We had a conflict in our house because there were 5 of us. I was the youngest of 5, and we had one 12-inch black and white television, and Batman came on at the same time in the afternoon as the new Mickey Mouse Club, if you remember that, with Lisa Whelchel and many other Facts of Life alumni, doing the new Mickey Mouse Club, the sort of the disco version of the Mickey Mouse Club, right? Which you can see, you can actually see that now on Disney Plus. It's amazing. But my sister wanted to watch Mickey Mouse Club. I wanted to watch Batman, and there was always this conflict because I was so into the Adam West Batman. But and then the Incredible Hulk happened, and it was like a thing, right? Do you know also that in the late 70s they had an actual live-action Captain America television show?
I have seen that. I never saw it live, but I've certainly seen things about it now, or within the past couple years or so of how they did that. And one of my in high school, when I got really into comic books as well, is when I really started buying comic books regularly and just diving into all that stuff. Daredevil was one of my favorite characters, and then come to find out that Daredevil was he on an episode of Incredible Hulk or something like that way back in those things, and I was like, wow, really? Daredevil was up back then,
Daredevil and Thor,
made
appearances. I kind of really dug the sort of more obscure 70s era superhero television shows. That like the Sid and Marty Krofft variety stuff, like Electro Woman and Dyna Girl. And do you remember any of the stuff that they used to have on Saturday mornings?
Oh, sure, yeah. And it wasn't superhero, but like Wonder Bug and
Wonder Bug.
If we're talking Sid and Marty Krofft,
oh hell yeah.
I got to interview Marty Krofft for one of the podcasts I produced called Under the Puppet, and it was just amazing sitting there talking to him.
Oh, what was that like?
About all these different shows. Oh, he's a legend. He'll sit there and be like, well, one time I was out at dinner and this guy come up to me and said, hey, listen, put your name on everything you do. Whatever you do, put your name on it. Put your name at the top. And that man was Walt Disney. And
that man...
He's just full of stories like that. He's fantastic, and and then Judy Garland came over and said this. He's awesome. But talk about what did they call it? The Idea Factory or whatever. They were just turning out stuff left and right.
Oh, and none of it was really that fantastic, but it was the fact that it was happening. I mean, I don't know about you, but I mean, like when I was a kid. All the Sid and Marty Krofft stuff from, or the Krofft Superstars, where you had like Captain Cool and the Kongs and Electro Woman and Dyna Girl and Dr. Shrinko and Fire Out Space Nuts and of course HR Puff and stuff. Lots of puppetry and all those things.
Land of the Lost too.
Land of the Lost. So not necessarily superhero-ish, but, sci-fi fantasy, of course.
Yeah, for sure.
But, one of the things that they talk about, and I'm going to go back to this just a little bit, supposedly there was they had optioned a Doctor Strange live action that was going to be happening, which I can't really see doing that well in the 70s just because of the subject matter. Yeah, the Incredible Hulk, I think, was the first one where you sort of saw the reluctant hero, where he was kind of put in many situations that were sort of designed to make him transform into the Hulk and then have some sort of morality tale at the end,
Yeah, for sure. I'm just trying to think. I mean, besides that one memory I have of the, turning off the TV and thinking it would save my space, like I was fascinated with all that stuff. And my dad was also very cool in that I watched a lot of TV shows with my dad. So he would be like, yeah, Incredible Hulk's on, you can come watch it with me, and then you're going to bed, like that kind of thing. They were great. I definitely remember Battlestar Galactica.
Totally.
Watching that shit, not necessarily superhero, but watching that a lot with my dad as well. And those are those were early years for me starting to watch TV and getting into things. I think heavy TV watching kind of came in the early 80s, where I really got into things. Like the A-Team was my favorite show in the entire world in fourth grade. And the Greatest American Hero, talk about superheroes. I mean, that was 80s. But
the original Reluctant Hero. Yeah.
That I loved that. I was him for Halloween once. My mom even bought me a curly wig so I could look just like him. And I know that's that's past the end of the 70s, but it's all still kind of in that time frame and super inspirational.
Yeah, I would kind of group the sort of early 80s stuff where they'd seen the success of Star Wars, they'd seen the success of things like Close Encounters, and suddenly there were like a million more that were kind of piling on top of that, and they sort of realized that there was money to be made from doing these sort of sci-fi kids shows. But when you watch something like the camp of Batman, and you kind of go into the Incredible Hulk, they're completely different. With the Incredible Hulk, they were kind of trying to make it sort of like The Prisoner, where he's this lone guy kind of wandering and trying to find a cure. And Jack McGee, man, he was a rough-looking fellow, wasn't he, Mr. McGee?
Yeah.
I think in the 70s it was easier to be a rough-looking dude and get an acting gig just for being gritty.
You're a character actor. That's what you are.
Lots of great character actors that were really awkward and hastily put together back in that day. But Greatest American Hero, loved that one. That was great. William Catt.
Yeah, and Robert Culp. I mean, oh my God, that guy was. And like looking back on it, watching him, you just go, "This guy is hilarious."
Oh,
this guy is so funny.
He was really funny. What was the last thing that you saw Robert Culp in?
Oh, probably The Greatest American Hero. I mean, unless he was in some movie that I'm forgetting about. But
if you recall, he did play the mayor-elect of New York City in Turk 182, the Timothy Hutton film.
I actually have not seen that. So
okay,
I remember it coming
theater.
out, but I did not see it.
Yeah, obscure New Wave theater 101. You should go check that one out. But regardless of any of that, yeah. So I mean, superheroes on television was such a novel thing back in the 70s, and they kind of didn't have as many vehicles for that, and sort of making them more serious and less campy, less sugar coated and perfect and more flawed, kind of entered into that. And then of course you had things like the $6 Million Man, The Greatest American Hero, things where it was kind of going on and going on and going on. You had these people who had identities and identity crises and all these different things to kind of work out in their head before they could go and save the people who were in distress and so forth, right?
Yeah, and it's funny because I'm remembering now that one of the other ones that my dad and I watched, and I think this is early 80s, it must be early 80s, but was Manimal, where it was the guy who could turn into animals. But it's like the same premise of the Incredible Hulk. Instead of just turning into the Hulk, he turned into an animal. Well,
it was usually a panther or an eagle, right? I remember this. Yeah.
Right? Yeah, yeah. And then the other one my dad and I liked was because they made a I know it was a film, but I think they made a series at least for one season of Starman, didn't they?
Oh yeah, dude. Robert Urich was it Robert? No, it wasn't Robert Urich. It was the guy who was on Angie. God, I can't remember his name, but yeah, they did like supposedly Starman's son from Karen Allen in the film, and he got together and were wandering. I remember that too. That was great.
Yeah. That's another one my dad and I watched a lot of.
I remember like relating to that show actually. I mean, like kind of feeling like it was a thing.
Yeah.
Oh man, there were so many of those television shows where they would get people, either they would spin it off from a film or they would get somebody who was good in a particular film and they would make them the vehicle of the show. Do you remember the show The Phoenix?
It sounds familiar, but I don't remember it.
Supernatural show. The guy who played Joaquin in Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan was the main character, because I guess he had a really mystic look to him, and he had this magic amulet that had powers. I don't know. I mean, everyone had powers or something magic that gave them powers.
Yeah, well, and if we can still stay in the early 80s, the other big show
I know where you're going. I know where you're going. Just do it. Do it. Go.
Is V.
Oh, no. I thought you were going to Voyager. Or
No.
Voyagers, the one where they had the Omni that would take them back and they would fix time.
I don't know if I know that one. I have to look that one up.
Oh yeah, Voyagers.
It might jog a memory, but
yeah, they had this thing where they would go back and they would fix time. It was kind of like Quantum Leap, but they would go back and visit like Thomas Edison inventing the light bulb, or the sign the Declaration of Independence or something like this. Yeah, that was the Voyagers. But oh my gosh, V! I was the biggest V fan.
Yeah, me too. I loved it because you had they were lizard people, and when that baby was born,
oh my gosh,
when the woman was pregnant, and wait, there's twins, and the second one was like the little lizard puppet. Like, oh my god, like I still have that burned into my brain.
Although the scene that I have burned in my brain was when she disconnects her jaw and swallows the guinea pig whole.
Right.
But the funny thing, you go back and watch that now, and it's entirely prosthesis, and there's just like some hand sticking the thing down the fake woman's throat, and it looks so fake.
Yeah, and you know how like if you search for one thing on YouTube, then the next time you go to YouTube, your whole page is just all those like different versions of those things. And I don't know what I searched. This was just like 2 weeks ago. And I don't know what I searched, but all of a sudden it was, and I forget her name, but she was the lead woman with the dark hair on V.
It was Diana on the show. Yeah.
And she was like, Diana kills so-and-so. And it's just this like 2-minute clip of her killing this other person. And then, so I stumbled through, and I was like, I was like, oh, V. And I watched that little clip, and I was like, oh, okay, I went on with my stuff. The next time I log in to YouTube, every video is Diana kills this person, Diana kills this person, Diana. And I was like, who is this person that's just clipping out these little segments of this character shooting other people and posting them to YouTube?
Played by character actress Jane Badler. Back in the I was a big V fan. I read the novelizations. I used to watch it over and over again, taped off of television. I was really into that show for some reason. It really connected with me.
Yeah, me too. I like that show.
Well, and like, okay, so if we're going to go off on a V tangent here, you kind of realized that like the guy who created it was trying to create sort of a parallel of the Holocaust, right? If you watch the original one, it has a very strong parallel to Nazi propaganda and having the youth come aboard and the whole thing. And then in the second one, they just kind of like veered off into some strange land and didn't come back.
Yeah, well, he got his money, so he's just like, yeah, just keep printing money. I'll be here on my yacht.
But it was entertaining television. And okay, so like going back to Starlog, when you had to do nothing but practical effects, doing things like making Spider-Man walk up a building, or making Superman fly, or making the Incredible Hulk turn into Lou Ferrigno, was so impossible by those standards, where everything had to be practical and you had to find a way to do it. You couldn't really animate it and mix animation and live action. And so it made everything that much more difficult. Where do you kind of feel like the boundary was crossed, where they were making like really good quality superhero live action stuff, where it was actually believable?
Well, I mean, I think I was probably, like I was so young in the late 70s and the early 80s. I just thought it was all fantastic.
Yeah,
so,
you did. When you watched it, you thought it was so cool. Yeah.
Yeah, to me, watching V, I was just like, oh, this is amazing, and, to even going back to the 60s Batman, them walking up the side of a building is, when you're a kid, like, you don't get that necessarily, you know what I mean? Like, you just think like, oh, wow, they're really walking up the side of a building. This is crazy.
Oh, man.
And then when you're older, you go, oh, they just turned the camera. I'm an idiot.
Have you seen Joel Hodgson's original appearance on Saturday Night Live in the early 80s?
Yes, of course, yeah.
Where he does that whole Batman thing?
Yeah.
Oh, comedy. I remember watching that live when I was a kid and thinking that was so funny. It's like, okay, turn your TV this way. So great. But yeah, I think that one of the things I loved most about these shows is just like the ships, where you had everyone like the Batmobile, and everyone had their own car, or if you were a superhero and had like Wonder Woman had her invisible jet, which was so awesome. But there was always something that kind of made you want to go, oh, yeah, I want something like that, or a utility belt, or a something, there was gadgets, or there was this, or there was that,
Yeah, my mom made me, one year for Halloween, I know this was in the 70s, she made me a 60s Batman, costume, Adam West, Batman costume with a utility belt and everything, and she handmade it all. And I'm pretty sure that I wore it for several months after Halloween was over. She made it for Halloween, and I wore the heck out of it because, who wouldn't want to be Batman, And then
my mom made me a General Zod costume out of black satin for Halloween one year, and we converted that into a Luke Skywalker costume about 3 years later when Jedi came out.
Yeah, that makes sense. My parents made me. My dad saved up money to buy. This is way off tangent here, but my dad saved up money back in those days to buy an $80 like Don Post Darth Vader mask that was, 2 pieces, hard plastic, looked just like the real thing. And then my mom made me an all black outfit and a cape. And then my dad actually soldered a circuit board that had flashing lights on it for my chest, so I would look just like Darth Vader. I had a lightsaber before. Remember, it was like a tube stuck on the end of a flashlight. That's all it was.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Uh-huh.
Pieces of cellophane that went over the lenses. And
I remember that well, actually. I had one of those.
That Halloween, I got so sick, like with some sort of stomach bug or flu or something. I could not go out trick-or-treat. Like, I was throwing up all over the place. And my mom was like, you have to wear this costume on Halloween. We spent so much time and money on it. We cannot, you have to wear it. So there are pictures of me in front of our fireplace with the whole costume on, with the lightsaber and everything. And my mom goes, you were just screaming inside the helmet. Like you were just bawling your eyes out. But you can't tell because my face is covered. But yeah, who didn't want to be Darth Vader? You know, he was the coolest bad guy. Just not when you're sick.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, wow. See, thank the Lord for parents who had the foresight to like know how to sew. What is it with the parents of our parents' generation where everyone knew how to sew, and you had the ingenuity to be able to just create this kind of stuff. I remember my mom being able to sew in 1984 and making me a Ghostbusters costume.
Yeah.
And
my mom was a fantastic seamstress. My grandmother was, my mom sewed a lot of stuff. My grandmother actually had a children's clothing store, and she made clothes for that store. You know, everybody knew how to do that. And my dad was a sheet metal worker for years, so he was good at, if you need something made out of metal, my dad could whip it right up for you.
Wow, that's
I cannot do any of that.
Yeah. So, and which kind of surprises me in the fact that, I mean, have you ever really kind of participated in the whole cosplay thing or the LARPing thing?
No, not really. No, I will wear very easy cosplay costumes. Like my favorite Marvel Comics character is Jimmy Madrox, the Multiple Man from X-Men. He's an X-Men X Factor, and in the early or mid 2000s, I think he was just basically wearing jeans and then a shirt that kind of hinted at his outfit. And I found somebody online who sold that shirt, and I was like, there you go, my cosplay's done. I can just wear jeans and this shirt. And, no crazy... I think I once bought a long trench coat to go with it, but no crazy outfits. I'm just not that... my talents don't lie in... What talents I do have, they don't lie in sort of the creating and the physical thing. And it's like puppetry. For the longest time, I tried to build puppets, and I never liked the way they turned out. And then I met my friend Russ Walco, who's an amazing builder, and I'm just like, well, I'll never build a puppet again because I'm just going to pay Russ what he's worth to build puppets for me. And he's built basically all the characters that I have right now. So
wow, I'm kind of surprised by that. I kind of had this illusion that every puppeteer was like the creator, the voice, the actions, the whole thing.
Yeah, I just not like. I just built a few things, and at the time when I started building, there wasn't YouTube. You couldn't look up 20 videos on how to build a Muppet style puppet. But there was the internet, so I was able to buy a book on how to do it that this guy wrote. And but it was just never good. And I'm not like, even when it comes to drawing or painting, it's like I'm fine. Like I can draw. I always joked that when I was a substitute teacher, I could draw SpongeBob well enough to impress the kids, but it's never going to be on TV. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like it's never like, this is not I couldn't get a job at Nickelodeon animating SpongeBob. Forget it. And I think my strengths lie more in performance, more in writing and stuff like that. So I'm going to leave the creating and the building to somebody who can really do it and do it well. And then I'll focus on other things.
Okay, side question. Have you started watching What We Do in the Shadows yet?
I have not. And I think on the last Mystery Science Theater tour that I was on with Jonah and Rebecca and Tim Ryder, and they were discussing it. And it's just something that slipped through. I haven't watched the original film yet. And then I know that the series is so great, and actually I'm taking a sort of comedy writing class from this guy who Brent Forrester, who wrote on The Office, and he wrote on The Simpsons, and he wrote on King of the Hill, and he wrote on all these shows. And he says that like right now all these executives in Hollywood are like, yeah, but can you make it more like What We Do in Shadows, because that's really what we want.
Oh my gosh!
So I was like, okay, well, I got to watch this show, because if that's what executives are looking for, then that's what we got to do.
Oh, it's so good. And one of the things that's great, there's an episode towards the end of the second season. I'm addicted to it. But there's an episode towards the end of the second season where Mark Hamill is a guest as this competing vampire who is sort of the nemesis of one of the main people in the coven. And the one vampire who's part of the coven, his name's Laszlo. He goes on the lam and goes in disguise as a wise talking bartender, and his disguise is he has a toothpick in his mouth, right? So all the vampires don't recognize him when he has a toothpick in his mouth, and he becomes Jackie Daytona, right? So it kind of makes me think of 70s era, 60s, 70s era superheroes where no one could recognize Superman because he was wearing glasses. No one could recognize Wonder Woman because she was wearing glasses and had her hair up. I mean, were we really that dumb that we couldn't see that was actually Superman?
Right. Well, we weren't, because we're the audience. We're in on the joke. But the dum-dums working in the Daily Bugle, or the Daily Planet, not Daily Bugle. But, they couldn't figure it out.
Well, there you go. But no, I can't recommend that show enough. That's just it's pure genius, completely bloody funny. Yeah, you know what? I have to say, I really, you know me, Mystery Science Theater is like my favorite thing in the world, and I loved the Jonah seasons. I thought that they were brilliant, and I have to ask, as a complete segue to what we've been talking about here, something that's completely the opposite of what we were talking about. What was your experience working in that camp, and can you give me stories or anything like that?
I loved it. I mean, I was a fan just like you. I discovered the show in high school, and then to this many years later, to get a chance to work on it and to work with Joel was amazing. I can't say anything horrible about it. If I was going to say some sort of criticism, is that first season, the first season that we did with Jonah that was on the Netflix, we did 14 episodes, and we shot those 14 episodes in 12 days. So
wow,
my one complaint, and those are 2-hour-long episodes. My one complaint about the whole process is I just wish it could have been longer. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like I wish, but when you read about Mystery Science Theater and you read about those days where they were on Comedy Central and the show was going, you were like, they did one episode a week. They really had time to perfect it. And
sure,
I just wish and I understand it. We were working on a budget from Kickstarter. So we didn't have that luxury of being, one episode a week. And so there's some things where it's just like, my puppetry wasn't the best, and it's like, well, can we do another take? We don't have time. We got to get through 70 more pages today, so we need to keep going.
Wow.
So that's like only my minor, and like I even joked that when we did the second season on Netflix, we only did 6 episodes, and I think we had 10 days to film it all, and the running gag was, oh, we have so much time now to film 6 episodes in 10 days. This is such a luxury, because I recently got into, I know I'm late to the game, probably the same with What We Do in Shadows, but I was late to the game to The Office, so I didn't watch it until pandemic hit, and my wife and we watched the whole thing of The Office. And now on YouTube,
I was watching The Office when you and I were hanging out together in L.A., man.
I know.
I've been a diehard for that forever, but I'm amazed by that.
Yeah, I was super. Sometimes if something gets popular, I kind of I go, I'm not gonna like it, and then
I hear you.
And then taking this another writing class from Brent Forrester, who worked on The Office, he showed clips, and I was like, okay, I got to watch this. And but then seeing on YouTube now, they have all these clips where it's like, bloopers and outtakes and behind the scenes and stuff, and I was like, man, I'd love to work on a show like that. I would love to work on, that's the dream, but I would love to work on a show that even if one season it took, anyway. So my one regret with Mystery Science Theater was that we were so rushed, because I think if we would have had enough, if we would have had a longer time, it just would have it would have lasted longer. It was only 12 days and then we were done, and it was like, I could do this every day for the rest of my life. Please let me do this every day for the rest of my life.
I loved Jonah and Felicia. I thought that they were great, and I was praying for the day that they would, that Joel would come back as one of the Mads and make Felicia the person in the theater. I thought that would have been the coolest way to flip the script on that. You can use that if you'd like. But no, I loved MST. I loved The Gauntlet. I loved the Netflix era, and there were some episodes on that were just fantastic writing and great execution. Dude, Mac and me, and so great. But I'm really sad to see that it's not being picked up any longer. I think that people are very short-sighted in not renewing that.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I would do it every single day if it was available to me. So
sure.
I have to think, I don't know, just in my head, I just think it's got to fit somewhere in this day and age of streaming everywhere. It just seems like it would fit somewhere, but I don't know. Netflix has whatever their metrics are that nobody knows, their top secret metrics. I did hear that the reason we only had 6 episodes the second season was because people just weren't finishing the season, and Netflix likes things you can binge watch, like The Office. You can sit down and go through 5 episodes like nothing, and for Mystery Science Theater, you can sit down and in that same amount of time, you only go through 2 episodes, So I think they like this binging thing where it's people just consuming a ton of episodes, but like I always looked at when like people were really disappointed with only 6 episodes for the Gauntlet. Was it 6? I think it was 6, right?
Yeah.
I think so. When people were upset about that, I was like, yeah, but look at like Black Mirror. Black Mirror only does 4 episodes or 6? You know what I mean? So it's like I understand it. I get why they're only doing 6, but let's do another 6 next year. But I guess that didn't happen. So
well, I mean, gosh, and when you compare something like British television series where they have a season of shows and it's like only 6 episodes, but each episode's like 2 hours long. It's like a movie, I mean, it's the same mentality that MST3K is like, I mean, where every single one, gosh, original music and original puppets. And, dude, I loved the Waverly character. I thought I know that was your puppet and everything like that, but I loved that character. I love that they introduced new bots. I thought that was fantastic. And I'm sad to see.
Yeah, it was an honor to do. It was an honor to do.
And not only that was your character, you voiced it as well.
Yep. Yeah. And it's always fun. There's a lot of times when you're in puppetry where you're either voicing it in the moment, or then it'll get replaced, or you're voicing it, or someone else is voicing it and you're just puppeteering it, which is what I did for Crow, because Hampton Yount was the one who was doing the voice of Crow, and I was just puppeteering the body. But to get to do your own character is pretty amazing. And then my friend Russ and I always joked that, it's like we loved being new puppets because no one was going to say Waverly's voice isn't right because it's a brand new puppet. So, whoever,
which they can do
knock
for
on
both
wood,
Crow
the Mystery
and
Science
for
Theater
Tom
continues and someone else gets to be Waverly, they'll have to deal with Waverly's voice isn't right. Although I don't know. I always think that voice is pretty easy to do.
But dude, you got to do Crow, man. That's just so cool. There are a few things in the world that are cooler than that.
It was, as I said, it's a dream come true. As someone who watched the show, as someone who traveled to Minnesota for the Mystery Science Theater convention when I was, just out of high school, it was amazing to get to work on the show.
What are you watching these days?
Well, I mean, of course, the Marvel shows on Disney Plus. I have been watching a lot of the Muppet Show because now the Muppet Show's out because there's a lot of episodes I haven't seen since they aired.
So great.
Yeah, it's really amazing. And what else? Superstore just ended its run. I really liked Superstore. I thought Superstore was a good show.
Okay.
And it didn't set the world on fire, but I thought on Superstore they would do these quick cutaways in between scenes to like what shoppers were doing in the store, and they were always like a visual sight gag that was just really funny to me, and I just thought they were I thought that was a great show. Yeah, but mostly, I mean, of course we watched WandaVision, we're watching Winter Soldier and Falcon and Winter Soldier now. And I watched American Gods. I hear that just got canceled. They're not renewing American Gods, so unfortunately with that. My favorite show of all time, which I will occasionally rewatch, is Deadwood.
Really?
I love it. I love Westerns, and I think that is one of the best Westerns ever put onto media. It's, if you can, I know there's a lot of foul language in it and a lot of kind of blood and guts, but that's one of my favorites is that show as well.
Oh, wow. Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, Disney Plus kind of has changed our household in every single way. I've become a big Phineas and Ferb fan. I can't get enough of that.
I've only seen clips. I haven't watched it yet, but I should.
My kids love it, and it's just smart, and the writing's great. I kind of feel like that had the great elements that MST3K had, where they were writing original music, and they had original plot points, and they could do things that were genuinely funny without being shocking. I mean, there are very few shows out there now where you can be originally funny without being shocking or provocative or whatever, and I loved that MST and Phineas and Ferb and the Muppet Show and some of these other programs were able to do that and do it well.
I didn't. Yeah, the Muppet Show has really shocked me because I watched it as a kid, and then I had the first 3 seasons on DVD that they released, and then they didn't release the 4th or 5th season. So watching all of these episodes that I either saw as a little kid and don't remember or whatever, but I have no recollection of as a kid seeing the Loretta Lynn episode of
Shields
the Muppet
and Yarnell
Show.
or Lola Falana or any of those other 70s era stars. It was so great.
But this Loretta Lynn episode of the Muppet Show is they can't be in their theater, so they do the whole show in a train station, and they reshot the whole opening, and it looks like they just drew everything on cardboard. And I was like, oh my God, this is genius. And I wish, it's so inspiring, to look at it and just be like, man, this is so funny, and this is so hilarious. And they're doing an act, and then a train comes through because they're in a train station. And it's just, I don't know, that episode really cemented to me how great the Muppet Show was, because I was just like, yeah, it's just genius that they're not in the theater. They're in a train station, and they have to deal with being in a train station the entire time. It's just brilliant.
So,
and my hope is,
sorry, go ahead.
My hope is, I'm not saying this in any sort of negative way, but my hope is that now that these episodes are available and they're out there for people to see, my hope is that the writing for the Muppets, the people who are writing for the Muppets, now that they have easy access to this, will go, okay, this is the style we should be writing in, not what's this modern style? We'll put the Muppets in this modern style. And hopefully they can get back to the puns and the jokes and the just somebody getting whacked in the face and, with a 2x4 or whatever. Because, I think writers on shows, they were probably like, oh, yeah, we can pull tapes for you of the Muppet Show. But now it's everybody has it in their house. And now, of course, I will say that there was the big news story is that Disney put disclaimers in front of some of these episodes, right? And there was the episode, and rightfully so, and there's the episode with Spike Milligan. And the first thing Kermit comes out, and there's a disclaimer in front of that, and then the first thing Kermit comes out and says is, oh, tonight we're going to salute every country in the world. And I was like, oh boy, here we go. This is why this disclaimer is on this episode, because you are about to see some horrible offensive stereotypes in this show, But there's hopefully enough that people can look past those things, because those things aren't funny, as the little disclaimer says, but hopefully people can look past those to see, the premise of doing a show in a train station. How is that funny,
and the genius of some of those bits too. When you watch those episodes, and you see the way that they took the art of puppetry to a different level, where they had the Jug and Fife band that would play that looked just like Jim Henson, or you had the bit where they did the Gambler with Kenny Rogers, and they made the old man look all crusty and old, and it was there was a grittiness to it that was so great. I mean, there were times where they were able to kind of go past the whole, the over the topness of puppetry and make it into an actual physical art form that was so beautiful to watch.
Yeah, there is one sketch in I think it's Roy Rogers and Dale Evans episode called Blue Skies, and it's prairie dogs just popping up out of holes, and they're each singing. There's 10 prairie dogs, and they each pop up and sing one half of a line, and then another one pops up and sing. And I sent this to Russ, the guy was the puppet builder friend of mine, the other day, and I go, this is brilliant. This is so funny, and it's so choreographed. And Russ was just like, yeah, I mean, that's, they had the time to choreograph that for the camera and be like, okay, you pop up and say this line, then you pop up and say this line, and we're going to run through it a bunch of times so everyone knows their part. And it just works so beautifully. It's amazing. And I'm so glad that people can see it now. Agreed.
Side story. When a few years ago when I was working, I was in New York a lot working with, on Fallon, with the drummer for the band, with Questlove. And I didn't know this, but Henson Studios actually used to be at 30 Rock in Studio 6A. And I actually have pictures of this. I'll send it to you. They gave me a tour of 6A. I mean, and the funny thing, you watch like The Tonight Show, and you see what looks like this big studio. It's not. I mean, everything is in little closets, and all the studios are very, very small, right? And they had a section of pipes that Jim Henson himself painted to look like tiki torches. That was in Studio 6A. I mean, literally, you can see his style just in those pipes that were exposed there. They actually cased it off and made it into like an exhibit for the tours. And one of the things that I love about that era of television, whether it's The Incredible Hulk or or Spider-Man or Captain America or the Muppets or Buck Rogers or Battlestar, they took all the elements that they had and they did something with it. Like you were just talking about, making a train station out of cardboard. I mean, just using practical effects to their advantage and making it not a cheap gimmick, but something that was beautiful and really ingenious to watch.
Thanks for listening. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and join our Facebook group. Live long and may the force be with you. Nanu Nanu.